Hello, my name is Brandon White. Before I get to my main subject for today, that is the buffalo hunters, I want to introduce the buffalo. There are 500,000 buffalo alive in North America today. That number is up substantially from what it was at the beginning of the 20th century. It's said that around that time there was about 1,000 of them left. How were the buffalo on the brink of extinction? That's where we meet the buffalo hunters. But just before we get into that, I want to make sure there's a good understanding of what we're really talking about. Again, I said there was about 1,000 buffalo at the beginning of the 1900s. Just 100 years earlier, the early 1800s, estimates of the buffalo population range from conservative numbers as low as 15 million to numbers I've seen as high as 125 million. It seems that the best estimates put the number somewhere between 30 and 60 million. Marie Sandoz, in her book, The Buffalo Hunters, The Story of the Hidemen, says the region of the buffalo's best adaptation was probably the Great Plains. Here he roamed the open prairies in the vast dark herds that were uncountable, even apparently inestimable, for the estimations varied by tens of millions. And this is what she was talking about. This is a drawing done by Martin Garretson during either 1913 or 1914. Set in the year 1860, it shows what the buffalo herds must have looked like up until the time of the buffalo hunters. Prior to that time, they roamed North America, being the provision for the Native Americans food, shelter, and clothing. But that was actually going to change. You can see here just in front of the buffalo that there's a skull on the ground. This is the artist's depiction, an ominous depiction of what would unfold over the next few decades. If you know about American history in the early 1800s, you know that during that time the Louisiana Purchase was made, the War of 1812 was fought, and the railroads were being built. All of these led to massive expansion into the West, and that expansion would create several factors that would account for the decimation of the buffalo. First of all, like the Native Americans, the settlers and those working the frontier would have to eat. In fact, William Frederick Cody, better known as Buffalo Bill, actually had a contract with the railroad company saying that he would provide buffalo meat for the workers. And with the railroads heading through the Midwest, the herds of buffalo would prove to be an obstacle. The resulting decision? Remove the obstacle. One way they did this was by allowing even advertising for riders of the train to hunt the buffalo for sport. You can see in this picture here that there are hunters shooting from the train. Obviously, if they're on a moving train, they're not going to be getting off to go and clean the buffalo, eat the buffalo, skin the buffalo, none of that. And they didn't have to. If you know about hunting, that was something that was going to change and is no longer allowed. But besides that, the buffalo hide did become a commodity. So there were hunters who would go out in teams, usually of at least 6 people, in order to hunt the buffalo and skin them. One would hunt and the rest of the team would go and prepare the buffalo hide to be sold and shipped back east on the train. Obviously, the prospects of profit drew many people out, and they would hunt down the buffalo by the thousands. See here, just massive piles of skulls with likely buffalo hide, entrepreneurs who took advantage of the buffalo hide market. And there is one thing, though, that contributed to the continuation of each of these, even as the buffalo population dwindled, and that is the conflict with the Native Americans. New Americans were still wanting them gone, and they saw this strategy of removing the buffalo as fit to accomplish that task. It was put by General Philip Sheridan These men have done more in the last 2 years and will do more in the next year to settle the vexed Indian question. than the entire regular army has done in the last 40 years. Let them kill, skin, and sell until the buffaloes are exterminated. Eventually, the Buffalo Hunters' War would occur, wherein angered Indians attacked the camps of hunters in February of 1877. It resulted in the deaths of dozens of Indians and one hunter. As horrendous as this part of history was, we, alongside the buffalo, now have the chance to see how it was worked out for good. That war would end up being one of the last conflicts of the American Indian Wars, and the turn of the century would see movement towards preservation of animals such as the buffalo, and also prevention of that happening again. Thank you.